The case of a missing West Point cadet continues to be a mystery 20 years later. What happened to Maura Murray? This is Military Matters. This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. During Military Appreciation Month, they want to celebrate the commitment that connects them to their military members. Visit NavyFederal.org/celebrate to check out their member-exclusive offers during Military Appreciation Month, or share your shout-out with hashtag #MissionMilitaryThanks. I'm Rod Rodriguez.
I'm Jack Murphy.
This is our Season 3 finale of Military Matters. For this episode, we look into the case of Maura Murray, a West Point cadet whose disappearance 17 years ago still baffles investigators and haunts her family to this day. Jack Murphy takes us into the story with a special interview.
The disappearance of former West Point cadet Maura Murray has captivated the public and led to television specials, podcasts, and endless speculation. They say she is the first disappearance of the social media age, as she mysteriously vanished after crashing her car in New Hampshire just a few days after the launch of a new social media company in 2004 called Facebook. It has been 17 years since Maura disappeared. While internet sleuths search for clues, it is easy to forget that Maura was a real person with a real family. What is so disturbing about her disappearance is that in just a 10-minute window, between the time when the last person saw and briefly spoke with her before calling 911, and when the police arrived soon after, she vanished without a trace. In order to better understand Maura's story and the circumstances around her disappearance, I spoke with another West Pointer, her sister Julie.
Nobody in my family had any military background whatsoever, so I didn't really know anything about it. And of course, my family, pretty big family. I'm the middle of 5 kids. Maura was my youngest sister. And so we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. And I knew pretty early on that if I was going to go to college, I'd either have to get an athletic scholarship or academic or some sort of scholarship. And so I played every sport. So did Maura. And at the time, my dad worked at the VA hospital as a nuclear medicine tech. And he used to run road races when he was younger, and he crossed paths with a woman that had a connection to the United States Coast Guard Academy. And they took a notice at my running times in high school, and they invited me to go to their week-long sort of summer program for high schoolers. So I went there and I was just sort of thrown into this military just atmosphere. And so at that moment, I knew, okay, I need to pursue something in the military because I absolutely love this. And then as I went through high school, I started getting some recruiting letters, and I got a letter from the track team at West Point. They invited me out on an overnight visit. So I got to go out there with members of the track team or cross country team. And it was just one night, and I absolutely loved that as well. And then I just went all in. So then when I got into West Point, went there, jumped on the track team, cross country team, loved it, loved the structure, the discipline. So I would write little postcards back to Maura in high school, and I would tell her, hey, you're going to love this too. This is so cool. So I just assumed that since I loved it, she would love it. And then when she got there, she did not love it as much as I loved it. So she ended up leaving before her 2-year commitment was up to pursue a nursing career. So she transferred to the University of Massachusetts.
At this point, there is a divergence in the paths of the two siblings. Julie graduates from West Point and begins her Army career, while Maura works on a nursing degree.
I branched ordnance right out of West Point. My first duty assignment was actually Germany. My infinite knowledge as a 22-year-old, I was like, oh, I don't want to go to Germany for 3 years. That's way too long.
What?
I know. So I traded my Germany assignment for a tour in Korea. Because it was 1 year. So looking back, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever done. But yeah, I did that.
I was stationed at Fort Benning, Fort Bragg, and Fort Campbell And I confirm that was the dumbest thing you probably did in the military.
That was really, really dumb. So, so I go to South Korea, and this was, right after graduation. I don't know anything about anything. They teach in West Point, like you're a leader, but you don't know until you get in there and do it.
Julie was doing great in the military, and for the year that she was in South Korea, she stayed in touch with her sister online for the most part.
She was doing really well. The nursing program at UMass was really, really competitive, and she was doing really well. So Maura was really smart. And the first year schoolwork at West Point should be very difficult for most people. It was very difficult for me, but she had no problem with it, like calculus and physics. That wasn't an issue for her. So she really did well in the nursing program. And so the only contact that I really had with her for the whole year of 2003 was just like online, like AOL instant messengers and emails. Cause I couldn't really call. It was before Facebook. It was when MySpace was there. So that whole year prior to Maura going missing, I wasn't even in the country. So
you guys were like sharing MP3s on MySpace. That was kind of.
Yeah. We were, that's when like LimeWire was there. We were putting viruses on our computer, but getting free music. So yeah, that was what we were doing.
After finishing her tour in Korea, Julie returned home for Christmas and saw her sister for what would be the last time before she headed to her duty station at Fort Bragg, where she immediately learned that she would be deployed overseas. And then her world got flipped upside down.
I get to Fort Bragg, I sign into my unit, and they're like, well, you're deploying. And I was like, oh, okay. I expected it. It's Fort Bragg. So I was in an ammunition company, and in the ammunition companies, we deployed by platoons. We call them magazines. So my mag was up. The one that the platoon I was going to get was up for deployment. I believe it was right when I got there, they had already started doing the prep for deployment. So I kind of fell in with that. So that's kind of where I was when I got the call that Maura went missing. So it was just chaos and just panic. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm supposed to deploy. Where is she? I had no idea. Nobody in my family knew why she was in New Hampshire. We didn't know if she didn't tell anyone. And here I am in Fort Bragg trying to figure out this deployment stuff. And I had no idea. And it was a mess.
Frankly, Julie was in a world of but a teammate stepped up to the plate to help her out.
I'm hundreds of miles away, just signed into my unit. I couldn't ask my commander, hey, I gotta go. So I was really fortunate that I was in a company that deployed by platoons. So it wasn't a typical deployment. And I had just met the fellow lieutenant that was in another platoon, and her platoon wasn't deploying for, I think, another 6 months or something. And she didn't even know me. And she stepped up and said, I'll go. I don't even think I approached her. Everyone knew I was going through something. And, I'm sure I shared with her like what I was feeling, which I didn't even know what I was feeling because I didn't even know what was going on. But she volunteered to go in my place. And at that point, I thought, well, let's hold off because I'm sure like something will come up. Like the police, I'm sure they'll solve it. And maybe she just wanted, I didn't know, but I thought they'd find her or would know something. But I never got the call saying, oh, we found her, everything's good. So when it came down to it, I said, I cannot thank you enough for doing this for me, and I could never ever repay you, but I'm going to take you up on the offer. And so she went in my place.
Julie then rushed to New Hampshire as fast as she could. When we come back, Julie tells us about the specifics of what happened the day Maura disappeared, what we know about it, and what we still don't.
Navy Federal Credit Union has made it their mission to help their military members for over 85 years. During Military Appreciation Month, they want to celebrate the commitment that connects them to their military members. They offer resources like Best Cities After Service and Best Careers After Service to help veterans transition to civilian life. Visit NavyFederal.org/celebrate to check out their member-exclusive offers during Military Appreciation Month, or share your shout-out with #MissionMilitaryThanks. Navy Federal, insured by NCUA.
Okay, so now you have heard the backstory, but with all of that said, what do we know about what happened to Maura that day?
Yeah, we don't know a whole lot, and that's sort of the intrigue of my sister's case. Is there's so many gaps. There's so little information, but the cops don't. I'm not privy to everything that they know, but they're working with a certain set of facts, which are very limited. And then the families, we're operating with another slightly more set of facts than the public. But the bottom line is there's not a lot out there that we know. So on February 9th, which was a Monday, Maura emails her professors and said that there was a death in the family, which there was not, and that she needed to take a week to deal with this. And then she made a series of phone calls one was to a condo that my family had stayed at in Bartlett, New Hampshire before. And she spoke to the condo owner, inquiring about a place to stay. And then she made another call to 1-800-GO-STOW, which was Stowe, Vermont, which is a ski area. And she got a recorded line, which basically was just saying, I don't know what the conditions were, what the rates were. I don't know what it was. And then she gets a bunch of empty cans and she goes and returns the cans for like $3. Then she goes to an ATM. She withdraws $280 out of her bank account, which basically was everything that she had. I think she left $16 in the bank account. So she wiped out her bank account and she returned, and this is a little bit out of order, but she returned some clothes she had borrowed from a classmate, and she went to the liquor store and bought a significant amount of liquor. And then she checked her voicemail about 4:20 something, called her boyfriend. They kind of were playing phone tag that afternoon. And then that was the last known call about 4 something that we know that she made. And then no one's ever heard or seen from her again.
Except that the reported sightings at the scene of where she crashed her car.
Right. So the next thing that happened was 7:27. A woman up in this small little town called Woodsville, New Hampshire. It's not exactly in the White Mountains, but it's close. So my family and I used to stay in the White Mountains. Maura was very familiar with that. We went there every summer to hike and camp and all that. But the spot where the Saturn was found was not an area that she was particularly familiar with. So a woman calls in at 7:27, calls 911 and says there's, this car off the road facing the wrong direction. And then police were dispatched. A bus driver went by and he allegedly spoke to what I have to assume was Maura at her car, although the online community will some people dispute that it was Maura, because Butch said that when shown a picture of her the next day or 2 days later, he said the picture of Maura did not look like her. But then he changed that and said, yes, it did look like her. So anyway, he asked Maura or whoever was at the car, do you need a ride? She said, no, I've already called AAA. He knew that was a lie because there's no cell phone service in that area still, even today. So he goes to his house, which is about 150, 200 meters down the street, parks his bus, goes in and calls 911 as well. He wasn't able to get through for whatever reason. So they eventually called him back. And by the time the first police officer came to the scene, Maura was gone, just vanished.
And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, this is like a 10-minute window, which is what is so, I guess, disturbing about this is she's there, she had a car crash, but she's okay. Mm-hmm. The guy talks to her, asks her if she needs any help. He drives a little bit down the road, makes a call to 911. 10 minutes later, the police show up. Like, mm-hmm. what happened in that 10 minutes is, I mean, that's the disturbing thing about this story.
Yeah, that's it. It's very disturbing. It doesn't make sense. Everything up to that point, everything that happened to that day doesn't make sense to anybody. We don't know why she was there. We don't know where she was going. We don't know what her plan was. It's just so many, there's just so many unknowns that just swirl around this case. And then you've got this, you've got people, it wasn't as desolate as a lot of people think it is, the area where the Saturn went off the road, but the houses are pretty close. I mean, the first woman that called in the 911 call, she had a direct line of sight to the car. And then the bus driver came by. He could, if he walked out into the road, he could see the car. And then there was a couple of other neighbors. But within about that 10-minute time frame, when the police arrived at 7:46, the car's doors were locked and she was gone.
Does any of her actions like strike you as being out of character? Because I mean, to go and buy some liquor and go up for a ski trip, I mean, it's not like a crazy, insane thing for a young person to want to go and do, take a week off from college.
Yeah, but it is a little out of character because she was doing so well in her nursing program. Mm-hmm. And one of the important, or probably the most important thing in the nursing program was your clinical rotations. They're hard to get. When you get into this rotation, you don't miss them. So she would have missed some clinicals that week. And she took her textbooks with her. So that kind of shows that, she was serious about this. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense why she went up there, why she'd jeopardize her standing in the nursing program. And then the other thing that doesn't make sense is she didn't tell anybody. Her boyfriend was stationed at Fort Sill. He was my West Point classmate. He was stationed at Fort Sill, and they talked pretty regularly. And she didn't tell him why she was going, where she was going. They did play some phone tag that day, and it seemed like she was sort of being a little bit evasive with him. She sent him an email and said, basically, I don't feel like talking. I love you. I'll call you later. So that's odd behavior for her.
Over the years, numerous police and community searches have been organized to try to find Maura.
Nothing's ever been found that I'm aware of. So we know that she had a backpack. We know she had a cell phone and she had keys and her wallet. So there's never been any cell phone activity, bank account activity. So, she's got $280. What is she going to do with that? That's nothing. It's 1-2 nights. So in terms of anything like that, no, we don't have any further answers. Nothing's ever been found. But of course, the police originally, they still classify it as a missing person case. So it's an open investigation missing person case. They've never recategorized it as criminal, and they've never listed or named any suspects. So they go and they say, hey, family, we can't release any information to you because it's an open investigation and we don't want to jeopardize the case, although they're unwilling to classify it as criminal. So that's a whole other discussion and very confusing for my family because we're like, what the hell? Like, show us her last known footage. Or the first week she went missing, there was scent dogs that were up as part of the search. And they tracked her scent from where the vehicle was found on the side of the road, 100 meters down into the middle of the road. And then the dogs lost her scent. So that sort of indicates to me that she got picked up, jumped in with somebody else.
Do you think it's unreasonable to speculate that she threw some of her, effects in that black backpack, locked the car doors, and either tried to walk away or got into a car with somebody and went somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible, especially if there's no evidence to say that she was drinking. But if she had been drinking, of course she'd want to. I mean, she's 21. She wants to get away. So that's a big deal. You don't want to be caught drinking and driving. So she could have yeah, I mean, thrown stuff in the bag and try to get away as fast as possible with the intention of coming back.
And this is continued. I mean, you finished your military career. Obviously, you know, your sister is missing. This is something that's never going to leave you. I mean, how did you try to balance these things in life? I mean, I know this is a difficult question. I'm not even sure how to ask it.
Yeah, it was really difficult. I didn't even realize that I was a victim in this for a long time, a secondary victim. I didn't realize how this open-ended trauma would affect me long term. So while I was in the military, I just tried to focus on sort of avoiding jumping in because I wasn't ready. So I didn't want to go on to message boards and start reading comments because, you know, there's a lot of toxicity in my sister's case. And I wasn't at a point in my life where I was able to even acknowledge my trauma. So I was in no place to start reading comments, really negative comments about my family and how, you know, we're suspicious and the things that I did or didn't do, or, you know, every word I say or don't say is written about and blogged about. And it's really hurtful. So it took me a while to even recognize that, whoa, I have some significant trauma that I've gone through and I've dealt with that. And since then, I've been able to be more vocal, be more public, because I just wasn't ready. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think that, oh, if I have some tragedy in my family, I'm going to act like this, you know, I'm going to do these things. I'm telling you, you don't know what you're going to do or how it's going to affect you or when you're going to even be ready to address it until you go through it and go through those stages of grief yourself. And it took me a while to get to where I am now.
Maura's disappearance is sometimes referred to as the first major mystery of the social media age. She disappeared just days after Facebook was launched, and social media has played a huge role in maintaining an interest in resolving this case.
Yeah, the Facebook launched the week that Maura went missing. And that's hard. It's hard looking back 17 years later to imagine a world where we didn't have Facebook. But there was a time when we didn't have Facebook.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, Maura had a pretty fancy, slick flip phone. She was ahead of her time. You know, she had one of the newer flip phones where you could text. You know how you can like text with the numbers and
right. And you'd have to scroll through each letter like 4 times to get to the one, and then if you missed it, you got to start over from scratch.
Oh my God! You know. Yeah. So that's the time frame we're talking about. For a cult. So I'm in a unique situation because I'm dealing with 17 years later. We still have very few answers as to where my sister is. Social media has kept my sister's case alive. And these online communities and web sleuths, while there's a small percentage that are terrible, hurtful, and have re-traumatized my family and I and anyone associated with the case, the vast majority has been good. So, you know, I know that I can't have it both ways. I can't say, hey, everyone talk about Maura's case and I'm going to, you know, do all these Facebook posts and do some tweets on Twitter. I have to know that there's going to be some bad apples and people that just want to stir up drama. And I'm like I said, I'm at the place in my life now where I'm able to deal with that. And I actually thank the military for giving me that sort of emotional intelligence that I have now to be able to deal with that, because not everyone can deal with that. Like when you start to read comments about how, you know, I read a comment the other day that somehow I'm pushing a narrative or something ridiculous. Like, what narrative am I pushing? I just want to find my sister. I'm not covering up for someone who did something to my sister. That's ridiculous. So I have to be able to kind of pull myself back and be like, okay, what are we doing here? What is the purpose of this? So I try to just focus on that positivity. And there's a huge community out there that are looking for answers. And I welcome that. And I know that I'm not going to solve this case by myself. And I need them. And they've been very helpful.
Being the first disappearance of the social media age means that Maura's case is never really cold. People are always searching for clues and keeping her memory alive. This has both good and bad repercussions.
Maura's story and her case has so many gaps in it that you can fill in the gaps with whatever you want. And you can make a really good story out of it and forget that we're talking about a real family, a real person that deserves the just basic respect for my family. I'm not asking really anything other than just minimum level of human decency. And some people can't do that.
For the people out there who do want to engage with this case, with the disappearance of your sister in a positive way, what can people do out there? What would you encourage them to do? What's the proactive but appropriate way to sort of engage with this subject?
Well, I tell people all the time, just keep talking. You got to just keep talking about Maura, but do it in a way that's actually about Maura. So especially recently, we have all these sideshows that have little to do with Maura, and they actually are just, they taint her memory, and that's not going to help us. So my rule of thumb is, okay, what are we talking about? Does it get us closer to finding out what happened to Maura? If yes, then let's pursue it. Let's have a adult conversation and not name call. Let's be productive and sort of follow that path and see if we can make sense out of it. But if it doesn't get us closer to finding Maura, or if it has nothing to do with Maura, then you have to check yourself. What the hell are you talking about? Like, is this for your own ego, or is this some personal vendetta that you have, or personal agenda? And so that's what I tell people. Like, I want people to talk about Maura. I don't want to censor. I don't have a narrative to push. I'm certainly not protecting anyone that may have harmed my sister. How could anyone say that? That's crazy. My family doesn't have hardly any more information than the public has. And we don't have secrets. We just want to find Maura. So you can probably hear it in my voice. I get a little frustrated when people accuse me of like hiding stuff. Like, come on, I want to find my sister more than anybody.
And, just like so many other things, it's easy for people to get caught up in like the stupid internet melodrama, as opposed to staying focused on an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. And then people insert themselves, and then it becomes about them and has actually nothing to do with Maura. So I try to use the skills that I learned in the Army and the military and keep that focus and keep people motivated and on task. But it's very difficult when you're dealing with the internet and you've got people that can hide behind the fake profiles and things like that and just say whatever they want to say. There's some sick people out there. So, yeah.
I had to ask, what does Julie think happened to her sister?
Yeah, I think we're looking at foul play. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that if Maura was still out there and was able to reach out to me, my dad, anybody in my family, she would have by now. So she's either being held against her will, which is horrifying, or someone killed her.
Is there anything else that I failed to ask or mention that you feel that people out there should know?
The only thing I'll say is that I encourage people to visit the family website, the website that I run. It's mauramurraymissing.org to get the latest actual facts and information and hear directly from me and my family, and also contact me through there and see what's going on and keep updated on different things we've got going on. So one of the things that I like to do is keep people focused on something. So this past week would have been Maura's 39th birthday. So I wanted to do something special to bring people together. And I'm a big CrossFitter. So, and I know Maura would have been a big CrossFitter too. So I made up a workout of the day, and we had people from all over the community jump in and do a 2-mile run and 82 burpees. And it was really, it was great. I mean, people came together for it and loved it. People trained for it. It was awesome. So things like that, I'm always trying to engage people in different ways to bring the focus back to Maura. So if people want to get involved, just go to my website and they can figure out what we're doing next, because we're always going to be doing something next. That is for sure.
If you have any information that could lead Maura's family or law enforcement towards further evidence or Maura's recovery, please contact law enforcement officials or reach out to the family at www.mauramurraymissing.org.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe now to Military Matters. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. This episode was written by Jack Murphy, sound design and editing by Rod Rodriguez, executive produced by Brian McElhenney. Go to stripes.com and save 50% on your digital subscription to Stars and Stripes. Just use promo code PODCAST. That's 50% off your digital subscription to Stars and Stripes with promo code PODCAST. Military Matters is always free to listen to. Just click on the podcast tab. Go to stripes.com. Leave us a 5-star rating if you think we earned it, and we always appreciate your reviews. We grow by word of mouth, so share this podcast with whoever else you think will enjoy it. While we're in production for Season 4, be sure to check out our other episodes from Season 1, 2, and 3. Everything from marijuana in the DoD, UFOs, true crime, to the debacle of on-post housing. Thank you all for listening. We greatly appreciate your support. This was the last episode of Season 3 for Military Matters. We're going to take a short hiatus to work on Season 4. If you have story suggestions or tips, email us at militarymatters@stripes.com. Follow us on social media, and we'll see you at Season 4. This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. During Military Appreciation Month, they want to celebrate the commitment that connects them to their military members. Visit NavyFederal.org/celebrate to check out their member-exclusive offers during Military Appreciation Month, or share your shout-out with #MissionMilitaryThanks.